August 2024. This is the week of the 19th. I honestly don't know who needs to hear this. I don't know where it comes from. I don't know why I feel compelled to make this video, but here I am, and thought it would be nice to share a bit of my story for those of you that are searching for that next step in your life. If you have that itch that you want to start freelancing, if you're working a job and it's not something that you're completely passionate about, or you're working at an agency and it's time for you to move on and maybe start your own thing. I wrote down some stuff that I did that could potentially help you clear your head, get you in the right mindset and all that. So here we go. Step 1, start saving money right now. Owning your own business is by far probably one of the most difficult things that I've ever done financially. It's easy in other aspects where I can create my own schedule, have time to do things. One thing that I always think about is when I go to the grocery store on like Tuesday at like 1:15 p.m. and nobody's there and I can just do my quick grocery runs. Like, those moments are always healthy reminders of all the stress being totally worth it. Little things like that always bring me back. But without getting sidetracked, cash is king. Start saving your money right now. A certain level of sacrifice is crucial. What does that mean? So you want to start your own thing, you want to freelance, there has to be some sort of trade-off, especially if you're working a job right now and you get adjusted to the salary that is given to you. There has to be a sacrifice. So for me, I went through a minimalist phase where shopping was not a thing. This black t-shirt I bought from Uniqlo, I own like 10 of these. Back in the day, like, I would wear the same uniform every day. And this part was important. I was actually inspired by Steve Jobs. You know, like when the iPhone was popping off and like you see all these WWDC videos and you start seeing Steve Jobs, like, you know, successful multi-million billionaire, whatever, coming out. He's like wearing the same turtleneck and the same pants. That was his look. That was his uniform. And something about minimalism that I love is that when you wake up, it kind of takes out that part of difficult decision making for the day. And I often default to just black pants, black shirt when I'm just chilling and I don't want to think about what I want to wear. It's just one of those things that's easy, it's comfortable, and it puts your mind straight to the next phase of your day, which is just either knocking out some work or whatever it is. This part is super important, at least for me. Just because I am into fashion, I love clothes and shoes and all that, you know, so like when I'm able to just clear my mind, know what my uniform is and I can get to it quickly, that's a really important part. Cooking at home is a game changer because eating out all the time is expensive, so learn how to cook. For me, I'm Asian, so having a rice cooker is a huge thing, whether that's just like rice and a fried egg, mixing that up, putting some like kimchi in there, whatever it is. Or back when I was first starting out my career in music, Campbell's soup, like I would buy cans of those and just keep them at the crib, mix some chicken noodle soup with some rice, have that for dinner, have that for lunch, like, you know, mix it up. Those Campbell's chunky cans, whenever I see those in the grocery store, it directly brings me back to those early days when I was just starting out. Cooking at home, saving money, not going out, not drinking is especially, that's a huge thing. All of that ultimately kind of helps you boost some side money and helps you to manage money and savings, whatever it is. I will say going out and controlling the level in which you go out is cool, but like the only exceptions would be if you're like going out to networking events, then definitely I would say that's cool. You're investing in your future because networking is honestly more important than your skill set. When you get to a certain point in your career and you've developed your skills to a genius / master level, your network actually is more important than what you can actually do. And we'll get to that probably in a later video. But cooking at home, don't go out. Stop drinking outside. Extracurricular activities, all these things, just keep that at a minimal pace and try to control that as much as you can. Next up is learn how to budget. I use an Excel sheet. Well, it's been modified, but I have been using the same Excel sheet since 2014. I would say probably the reason why I'm still here and I'm able to do my job and I'm able to forecast and do all these things financially is because of budgeting. Financial freedom doesn't mean the amount of money, but it's knowing what to do with what you're given. I think that if you can lock that down and keep that within the realm of realistic possibility, and you see, this is what I'm able to do, this is how much money I can spend, and I'll probably make a later video going through my budget sheet, and I'll give that to y'all for free, because I think that budgeting is the most important part in this whole first step about saving money. Knowing exactly where you're at all the time with how much money you make is the best indicator of what you can do next and how much risk you can take. And it's all about probabilities and managing those probabilities and problem solving, not only for your job and the thing that you get hired to do, but also for the level in which you want to take your career to the next level. That all involves risk, and we can talk about that later on. The first stage is, I believe, if you can get your finances in order and you can build up like 6 months of life where you don't have to worry about bills and you can just focus on your business, I think that that's probably the most healthy relationship that you can have with your freelance career. And after that, it's all about surviving. It's you against yourself, but it's also you against your peers, other people that are in the same markets trying to get the same clients that are maybe in the same life stage as you. It's all about you out surviving them. And money usually is the biggest indicator of how long you can survive. So managing that well is definitely the most important part. Step 2 is, I would say it's important for you to start networking right now. I think being in like high capacity human interaction areas is probably the best. For example, when I first started my career, I was in the music industry and I had just started messing with cameras. I was the night manager at a local recording studio, and a lot of times clients would walk in, whether they were artists, producers, managers, A&Rs. So you just strike up a conversation with them, talk to them and tell them what you're doing, where you're at. You know, you can show them your work, YouTube channel, Vimeo channel, like stuff that you have on your phone, on Dropbox. All these things kind of culminate into you being able to sell yourself. A lot of my early jobs back in the day was like with rappers that would come in. So the way it would work, it'd be like, you know, big homie rapper. One of my clients was Young Jeezy back in the day. So he would come in and then his entourage would come in after. And then usually the entourage involves managers that have other artists that are up and coming, or, you know, younger artists that don't have as large of a following that, you know, need content or whatever it is. So I would find those people and I would talk to them. And then I remember the deals that I was giving out early on was like, I'll shoot your video for $300, and like, that would include the edit. So I was hustling, you know, just like making those sales, talking to those people. And then eventually, you know, you start racking that up. And then I remember I was shooting weddings back in the day too. So like I would do that weekdays and then I'd shoot weddings on the weekends. Another example would be working at an agency. You know, you start meeting other creative people that come in to collaborate. And then there was a buddy, he was a photographer, and then he started to get into like shooting corporate interviews. So then he would ask me, and then, you know, I would work out a deal, and then I still work with him to this day. But it's stuff like that where, you know, you can make those connections and just continue to keep networking. My thoughts on cold calling on Instagram and social media, I truly believe that it doesn't work. You can keep trying, but I don't really recall any moments in my career where like that was actually a thing for me. I would use social media, so I would make that physical connection. You know, we would have a conversation, it would be great, and then whatever form the potential client wants to communicate, whether that's through IG or text message or email, then you would follow up and correspond with that potential client through that source of communication, however they propose. So in those cases, like IG has definitely benefited me. And then, You know, for like referrals and networking, IG has been a great tool, but for cold calling, I would say it's kind of it's a waste of your time, and you're better off just trying to be in places where you can meet people face to face. But that doesn't mean that cold calling doesn't work. Let me know in the comments if you come across this video, if you've had instances where you did a cold call on Instagram or whatever and it turned into like a legitimate client situation. During this stage, one sign that showed me that it was working was getting repeat clients. When you start getting repeat clients and like the people that you work with want to hire you for more, or another thing is referrals from those clients, if that starts happening often, then that to me is a good indication that the work that you do is working and it's good. And on top of that, people trust you and they want to share your trust with others. The one aspect of the stage that sucks the most is it is the exploitation of cheap labor, but it's sort of unavoidable. Anybody that you talk to that's successful is always going to refer back to this one stage in their life where they were hustling, like they were doing work for either free or for dirt cheap, and they were just trying to get their rep up. They're trying to get their name out there. And this part is the part that is going to suck. It's going to be really hard, and this is the part where it probably tests you the most. So yeah, the exploitation of cheap labor, because the best way to get somebody interested into working with you is not only is it the talent and the service that you can provide, but it's also the price. Usually lower price means that they can have more money for themselves, or they can do more with the budget that they have, all these things. Part 3 is, how do you know when it's time to take the leap? For me, after my career in the music industry, I started working at a small agency. That started in 2013. Around 2015, I started to get the itch of potentially wanting to go freelance. I always knew since I was younger that I've always wanted to be my own boss. That was something that has been ingrained in me because my parents were entrepreneurs and I saw them build a successful business, and I wanted to do the same. It was in 2015. I was enjoying my life at the agency. It was, there would be times where like, things would get restless. I start to think about, what if, and one of the big reasons why I wanted to freelance was because if I never did it, then I would never know what it would feel like, even if I failed. That was a huge thing. I wanted to give it a shot because I needed to know for myself that if I could do it. And if I couldn't, then I could just go back to working at a job. Because what you'll soon discover is freelancing and running your own business is not all about the work that you do. You actually have to run the business. Like you have to take care of the money, marketing, networking, all these things. You have to do it yourself. That part is, I think, the part that shocks the most people when they start doing this. So 2015 comes around. I'm starting to think, and I'm starting to like meditate and pray about ways in which that I can figure out like when is a good time to do it. So I came up with this method, which is if I could equal my freelance pay to my agency salary for 6 months straight, then that'd be a good sign. And that's what I did. So in 2016, using my budget tracker Excel sheet, I started to track all the income I was making from my freelance side work, and eventually I built up my freelance business to make more than what I was making at my agency. So I did that consistently for 6 months. And then in September of 2016, I told my wife that I wanted to try maybe going freelance. In November of that same year, in 2016, I gave my 60-day notice at the agency. During that time, in 2016, this was probably one of the hardest years of my life because I was working at the agency from 9 to 5. 9 to 5, I get off at 5, sometimes 6. I come home and I have dinner, and then I would start my freelance work from like 8 o'clock or 9 p.m. And then I would work until like 12 to like 2 a.m. Sleep, wake up, go to the job. And then I did that consistently, almost like 5 to 7 days a week. I was doing that, just putting in a lot of work, doing work for the agency, and then also doing a lot of my side work. At the time, it was nuts. I was working like crazy hours every day, sometimes 20-hour days, just like devoting my life to both sides of that coin. And then eventually, after 6 months of consistently making, either equaling the amounts or making more doing my freelance than I did at the agency, that's when it was a really big indication for me. I did that for a year straight. And then when it became consistent and it was undeniable after 6 months, that's when I knew I was ready to take the leap of faith and to start my own thing. A few things that I think that are important to add to these 3 main steps and what can help you with the journey is, first one is, don't be afraid of debt. That's a huge thing. Like, especially if, okay, so the industries that I'm in, I'm a photographer, I'm a videographer, and I shoot content, and mostly in advertising, right? So the equipment that I have to own is expensive. And early on, one of the mistakes that I made was that I was too afraid and I didn't buy the industry standard gear. You're better off buying the better in the beginning and just having the same gear than like being somebody that doesn't. I think that that's an important thing that I wish that I learned when I was first starting out. When I first started out, everybody was like shooting with 5D Mark IIIs. And I was like, yo, I can't spend like however much, like $3,500 back then. Like, I can't spend $3,500 on a camera. Like, I've never spent that type of money before. But in hindsight, I honestly should have bought 2 and just like started to build my business and not been afraid of spending that much money, which it is a lot of money. But like, you know, almost 10 years later, like the amount of money that you spend on equipment is going to be insane, especially if you're in like the shooting, like photo video space. It's ridiculous. So like, I would say better off just buying the better in the beginning. The only exceptions to this rule is if like you have a specialty service, whether it's like, you know, you create lifestyle videos using old camcorders, or like you want to start a portrait business but you only shoot film. Like these sort of they're, because you know we work in a creative industry, so however you want to push your muscle and flex that's on you. And like if you have something special that other people don't have using those tools, then I would say in those cases, then yes, like you don't have to buy the best shit. You just got to buy the best shit that works for you. But for the like if you're wanting to like progress into like, you know, working with big corporations, big companies, and like, you know, you see what these other people are shooting with, like minus like an Airy or some like crazy like red cameras or whatever. If you know that the photographer shoots like events for Nike and he shoots like a R5, and this is somebody that you want to work with long term, then just, I would say it's probably smarter just to go ahead and buy an R5. Buy something that's similar so that you can have same levels of quality, you know, and then you can, you know, continue to build your business knowing that you have competitive equipment that you can, that your clients can trust you with. So that was one thing in hindsight that I wish that I thought of. But a huge thing is, if you're going to take on debt early on in your business, like make sure that you manage that well. Like, don't be out here acting a fool and just like spending all of it. Like, only spend it for the things that you need to spend it, which are for your business. Don't be out here being irresponsible, because it'll bite you in your ass. It bit me in my ass really big once. Be responsible. If you do decide to take on debt, be responsible with that. Second thing is don't burn bridges. This is highly important. One example of this is after I quit the agency in 2017, that same agency actually became one of my clients for a few years, and they were a large source of income for me. So this part is important. Do not burn bridges, and try to be friendly with as many people as you can until you reach the point where you can't. Of course, I have stories, and maybe I'll get to those when we hit 10K subs. Another reason why it's important to like don't burn bridges in the beginning is because anybody that cares about their business, that business is going to grow kind of at the same pace that you're growing too. So like as you continue to get better, they're going to continue to get better, and then there's going to be a lot of collaboration. So like the jobs get better and the money gets better. So I think that keeping an open mind and just like not burning the bridges and like having those relationships. There are some relationships that I had since 12 years ago that I still work with to this day, and it's worked out for me. So be a nice human. One of the biggest mistakes that I made early on in my career is a lack of focus in what part of the industry that I wanted to be in. I was too focused on money, which is really, it's a pitfall that's easy to get into. I was really focused on money. All I cared about was hitting my financial milestones. So then I would say yes to like the most random type of work. Like a lot of that ended up leading into like corporate talking head video. Eventually that was something that I did not want to stay in. Even now, like I don't ever want to do it again. Like if like something comes through and like the budget's really good, then I'll take it on. But like for the most part, it's like I'm turning down 99% of like the talking head corporate work space type of stuff. Like I'm not doing that anymore. But that's what I got stuck in. And then in 2020, during the pandemic, I had an epiphany that I just wanted to like align myself with my work way more. And then, so that's why I cut corporate video work out completely. And then I kind of had to start from the beginning again in this next phase of my life, which is more lifestyle, product showcasing type of stuff in advertising. So if I could do it again, I would probably spend a little bit more time networking and trying to get into those industries quicker so that I could spend less time in the soul searching phase, like right smack dab in like year 3 of my freelance life, having to like pivot and start over again and then find myself. Rather than doing that, maybe if I had done that earlier on, then I could have avoided that step and then would have progressed farther in the industry that I wanted to be in. I think that's it. Again, so to recap, phase 1, part 1 of it is save money, learn how to budget. Phase 2 is network and be effective at networking. I still think face-to-face meetups and meeting people in person is still by far the best way to gain people's trust and to make a good first impression. Social media and websites are good tools to display work and display your vibe, like who you are as a person. But for the most part, like I would say like 99% of my work is always like face-to-face interactions and like meeting them at networking events or parties or whatever it is, that sort of thing. And then phase 3 is knowing when it is the best time for you to do it, because according to the calculations that I made, there was a best time, and I went for it. But it required discipline as far as me understanding like realistically where am I at financially, and then taking the proper steps to understand when would be a good time for me to take that leap. I really enjoyed making this video because I enjoy talking with people in that in-between phase where they don't know what they need to do. And my answer is always yes, go for it. Because at this point, what do you have to lose? If you feel like that you have something to offer the world, then you really have to see whether or not the world wants the thing that you're offering. And I think that that's the most exciting part. I appreciate you stopping by, checking out the video. If you have any questions, leave comments, hit me on Instagram. I'm open and I'm here to have conversations about it. If you have any pointers or if you have any critiques about the ways in which I went about it, that's also welcome. And let's have a conversation. Please like and subscribe to the channel. It would mean so much to me. And we'll see you on the next one. Peace.